Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the murder of Sister Cathy Cesnick. And this murder was covered in a great docuseries called The Keepers. The Keepers was a 7-hour docuseries by Ryan White. It took 3 years in the making, and it's an excellent Emmy-nominated series that has something in it for everyone except children. So, spoiler alert, this series, this discussion I'm going to be having here, deals with the abuse of children. So SA is what we're going to call it to get around the YouTube algorithms. So if you've seen The Keepers, then you know what I'm talking about. It has something in it for everyone. It has true crime, a whodunit that's unsolved, a religious abuse, institutional abuse of power, how the Catholic Church also treats whistleblowers, psychology and repressed memories, possible MK Ultra ties, which I will research in other videos, possible murders of other women in the area, so possible serial murderer, and the characters in it are wonderful. We've got Gemma and Abby, the Grandma Nancy Drews, and Tom Nugent, and just all these other people that are trying their best to get justice for Sister Cathy. You also have legal issues, repealing or extending the statute of limitations for criminal SA against children, which is very, very important and needs to be addressed. So if you're coming at this video after seeing The Keepers, then you have a good hold on the base story. What I'm going to do is to try to just look at the facts of each case, look at the Sister Cathy day that she went missing, and put the facts that we know about that, about the facts about the car, the facts about the crime scene, the facts about Father Maskell, the facts about the outcry witnesses, and put that in a timeline. And the other murders, what's the similarities, what are the FOIA requests bringing forth, those kind of things. So pretty much a follow-up on what's happened in The Keepers and kind of an update. Now, if you're coming at this and you haven't watched The Keepers, I'll try my best to explain what's going on. And of course, I want to give some shout outs to SNAP. That's the survivor network of those abused by priests. That's snapnetwork.org. Also RAINN, RAINN with 2 N's, or 1-800-656-HOPE. Also, if you watch The Keepers and you want to be filled in more on what Gemma is coming up with, she has a podcast called It's Foul Play, and they have 40 different podcasts, sometimes running up to an hour or more, so you will get filled in on a lot of different witness statements and interviews, and it's fabulous. She also has a book called Keeping On by Gemma Hoskins. It's published by Mascot Publishing, and you can get it from Amazon or any retail bookstore. So if you need help, reach out to SNAP, reach out to RAINN, reach out to the law enforcement. Maybe not the local law enforcement, but definitely reach out and call 911. So let's start at the beginning. Sister Catherine Cesnick, known as Cathy, Sister Cathy, she was with the School Sisters of Notre Dame. And let's put a little note, because I want to look into the other School Sisters of Notre Dame schools to see what other shenanigans went up on at those schools. I'm just saying, it's rather odd, in my opinion. She was beloved by her students at Archbishop Keough High School. That was the Catholic high school in Baltimore. And then later, she went and worked at Western High School. That was not a Catholic high school. That was in the area. She was both an English teacher and a drama club teacher at Keough. We can just call it Keough because then later it changed to Seton Keough. So Archbishop Keough becomes Seton Keough, just FYI. She was a rare teacher, just beloved by her students. She used the Socratic method, coupled with intuition, coupled with sensitivity. That's a tall order, because the Socratic method can be very challenging, and it has you answer a question and then they question that and then you answer that. It's very challenging, and to do that with intuition and sensitivity, I bet she was just brilliant as a teacher. She was only 26 years old when she was murdered. 26. And she left an indelible impression on many people, as seen in the keepers, as seen in the interviews, as seen by the people that are following this case. Just even me getting into this, spending a good solid month doing nothing but research on Sister Cathy's murder, all the different players, all the different alleged suspects, all the what we know about the crime scenes. It's crazy. All the other Catholic priests accused of SA in that area. It's nuts. In 1969, Sister Cathy had already taken her final vows, but she was living outside the convent under what's called exclausation. And if I pronounce that wrong, I'm sorry. So that's living outside the convent, that's wearing civilian clothing, but still being a nun. And at the time of her death, she was working in a public school, Western High School. She was teaching 11th grade and 12th grade, and she had left Archbishop Keogh, which I said was later known as Seton Keogh. Now what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to get deeply into the outcry witnesses and the statements, but I'm going to tell you, just to keep this in the fact pattern, in the timeline, and not break into this person said this and this person told her this. While she was at Archbishop Keogh, she had children, girls, come to her and tell her, or she weaseled it out of them, that they were experiencing SA by the priests at Archbishop Keogh. This is pretty much a known fact at this point, because it's like Bill Cosby. Enough witnesses have come out and said the same thing, and they have no reason to do so. And I'll explain the payouts that were piddly. They'll let you know that there's damn no reason to come forward with an outcry, or to come forward with information at this point if it isn't true. So girls came to her and told her that stuff was going on, and she told them it'll be taken care of. But then she went to another school, all right? And the abuse kept happening. The abuse kept happening, and she was murdered. Allegedly, the superiors, Mother Maurice Kelly, gave both Sister Cathy and Sister Helen Russell Phillips, known as Russ, permission to teach in Catonsville. So she was living outside the Carriage House Apartments with Sister Helen Russell when she was murdered. They also shared a car, a 1969 green Ford Maverick. Let's put this into perspective. It's spring 1969. Sister Cathy asked for permission to live outside the convent, but turns out that she had until December 31 to move back to the convent or quit. So she had a decision to make, and I want to note that that also makes her more of a threat, knowing what she knew went on at that school, or what the girls had, all different girls who didn't even know each other, told her was going on at the school. So it makes her more of a threat. On November 6, 1969, a Keogh student, who she kept in contact with her students from her former school, it hadn't been that long since she'd left it, a Keogh student and the boyfriend of the Keogh student visited Sister Cathy's Carriage House apartment. Two of the priests, who will later get into them, one called Maskell and the other called Magnus, they came in without knocking. And Sister Russell's there with Cathy. The sisters tell the kids, just go on out of here. And allegedly, that student was one of the students that was confiding in Sister Cathy about what was going on at Keogh, and what was still going on at Keogh after she left. The two of the perpetrators, the two alleged suspects, the two accused priests, barge into the apartment. You follow me? And Sister's like, yeah, you get out of here. Who knows what happened, that day, because she lived. But then that next day, when the student went back to school, she was threatened with a gun by one of the priests. Yes. So there are some upheaval going on that was being hushed up. So the next day, November 7th, 1969, the same day that other student's getting threatened with a gun about don't you say anything anymore about the essay going on at this school. That day, Sister Cathy had asked a student from Western, because she went to work, she asked the student if that student wanted to go shopping with her that night because she needed to get an engagement present for a family member. Turns out it was her sister, but I don't think that was told to her. She said, what are you doing? And, she said, tonight I'm going to go get an engagement present for a family member. Would you like to come? And the student didn't go. We wonder if the student had gone with her, if Cathy would have been abducted or, taken away and murdered. So that night, after work, Cathy gets her check. The banks are open later that, on those days. She gets her check. She cashes her check. This is proven. Then she goes to the Edmondson Village Shopping Center, or across the street from the Edmondson Village Shopping Center, to buy buns from a bakery called Muley's. Apparently everyone thinks that she went to the Muley's in the Edmondson Village, but apparently at that time that they said, it wouldn't still have been open. It would have been like right across the street inside of a building. For the purposes of this, I guess it truly doesn't matter because she bought the Muley's buns and she put those buns in the car. Cathy cashes the paycheck, and it was a pretty good sized paycheck too. She bought the dinner rolls from Muley's. She places the dinner rolls in the Ford Maverick, and Cathy never makes it back to the apartment. But the car makes it back to the apartment. The day before, there's been some drama with the priest coming in, and allegedly people said that Cathy that day at school seemed sort of nervous, out of sorts. Sister Russ is obviously is keeping quiet. They're going about their normal day the next day. Cathy goes to run an errand, 2 errands, and doesn't come back. So Sister Russell later said, convent habits die hard. We didn't stay out after 10 o'clock. So Sister Russell, she didn't know why Sister Cathy hadn't returned. So she calls Sharon Hamill Bush. So essentially that's kind of like an outcry witness for the people that say it was a conspiracy. She really didn't know where Cathy was. That's why she called Sharon Hamill Bush and said, hey, do you know where Sister Cathy is? And she's like, no, I don't know where Sister Cathy is. And so she's like, well, I think that maybe I should call the police or Coob or McKeon. Now, Coob and McKeon are 2 Jesuit priests. Coob is essentially a very close male friend of Sister Cathy. Now, I believe that they had been lovers, and that's my opinion. And maybe they didn't want to tarnish her reputation to say that she broke a vow by having a boyfriend or considering having a boyfriend, but they were very close, let's put it that way. So allegedly Sister Helen then said, well, maybe I should call the police. Maybe I should call Coob and McKeon. Think, Sister Russell sitting there at the Carriage House Apartments, doesn't have a car, doesn't have a way to go out and look for Cathy herself to see, oh, maybe Cathy ran out of gas. Maybe Cathy's car broke down. Who knows? But long story short, is that call to Sharon Bush proves that there wasn't a conspiracy on the part of Sister Russell, that she actually thought that Sister Cathy was missing and wanted to know, hey, did you see her? Then what happens is that she calls Coob. She calls Coob and McKeon, who allegedly have a strong alibi. I will get into them separately. They come to the Carriage House Apartments. So at midnight, Sister Russell calls Gerald Coob, and the police were called at 1 a.m. to report Cathy as a missing person. Okay, so think. I believe the first time the police get the report to look for Cathy, it's 1. Now, one question that I want to bring up when we talk about Coob and McKeon is why in the hell, since they came via a car to the Carriage House Apartments, why the hell didn't they look for Sister Cathy just like a normal person would? You would say, oh, where is Thielen? Well, did her car break down? Did she run out of gas? You're not immediately going to think that I'm abducted, right? That's not where your mind's going to go. Especially 1969, you're going to think it was something minor. Maybe she ran into somebody at school, that one of her school children, needed help or something. And she couldn't get to a landline, because that's what they had back then. They didn't have cell phones. They had landlines. You had to get to a phone, and you had to have the money to stick in the payphone. I find it suspicious that Coob and McKeon didn't then say, hey, Russell, get in the car, stay here, and we'll go out and drive around to Edmondson Shopping Center and see if we can find her car. They did nothing of this. They sat there and they talked at the apartment, waiting for Sister Cathy. By 1 o'clock, they called the police, allegedly. So that's the first time the police are called out or notified of the missing person. Notified. There's a nun missing. This is odd. But I gotta say, that car was back at the Carriage House Apartments. It was seen back there. And how do we know this? By the fact that somebody called into the police that the car was parked essentially illegally, improperly. The car, like you have the Carriage House Apartments and then you have another street, and the way it was pulled in, it wasn't in its proper spot at all, and it had its rear end out into the street. And so somebody just called it in and said, oh, that car's improperly parked. And this was at 10. So that gives you the timeline. She left at 7. The car's back at 10. Whatever foul play went on with Sister Cathy happened between 7 and 10. Okay, so let's just go by the facts. It makes it a heck of a lot easier, because when people talk about conspiracy and this person involved in that, this is the time frame that whoever did whatever they did and abducted her and murdered her, it went on in this time period. 7 to 10. Because the car was back by 10. It just wasn't known that it was backed by the main players. It was tangential witnesses. The person that called in, hey, the car's got it's parked here. Come get it. Come deal with it. Call the police. And see, they didn't tie it all together. And then you have 2 other witnesses who claim they saw Cathy or someone that looked like Cathy that was in her car. Another person said they thought they saw someone driving that car away and that she was in the passenger seat trying to get out. So it seems as if perhaps she made it back to the Carriage House Apartments. She might have been abducted not at the Edmondson Shopping Center, but at the Carriage House Apartments. She just didn't make it inside. And you know how I know, conspiracy theorists, that she didn't make it inside the Carriage House Apartments? She left the rolls in the car. That's all I need to know. If you do an errand and you come back and you've got dinner rolls, even though I think they were going to have them for breakfast, but whatever. You have dinner rolls that are fresh. You just got them from the bakery. The first thing you're going to do, especially if you're in a car that's not got its own driveway in a house, that you have to park in a parking space, you're going to get out of the car with your dinner rolls and take them inside. You're not going to leave them in the car. So Sister Cathy did not ever make it back into that apartment. Otherwise, the Muley's dinner rolls would have been back in the apartment. Just saying. Sister Helen doesn't know where she's at. Coob doesn't know where she's at. McKeon doesn't know where she's at. They had called the police at 1, reported her missing. And then allegedly they said mass and they talked, and about 4 o'clock in the morning, a.m., I believe it was Pete, went out to relieve some stress and take a walk. I think Jerry must have been with him, because they find Sister Cathy's car. There it is. They didn't see it on the way to the Carriage House Apartments. They must have gone a different direction. But all of a sudden, oh, there's Sister Cathy's car. They're the ones that find it. And they open the door and they look inside. I know. So then the police have to be called out, because now her car's back and it's muddy. And there's a tipped over wastebasket inside. I guess between the 2 seats you could have a wastebasket, and it was tipped over. And the Muley's buns are in the front seat wheel well. Now, there was argument over whether the Muley's buns were in the passenger seat or in the wheel well, but the crime scene photos show it in the wheel well. Like where you put your feet. So then, now we have a missing person. And the next day, Sharon Hamill Bush comes back to the Carriage House Apartments and is questioned by one of the police officers there in front of Sister Russell. Okay, so keep in mind, people want to say, well, we don't know if Sister Russell knew about the essay that was going on at the school. The police officer in a black trench coat asked Sharon Hamill Bush if any inappropriate things were going on with the girls at Archbishop Keough. Essentially, did anyone at Keough do anything to you that you didn't want them to do? And she didn't know. She was like, no. So, if that's said, right in front of Sister Russell, the police didn't pull that out of his hat. Sister Cathy hadn't told him that, right? So that means Sister Russell or Coob or McKeon told him that. Hey, there's something that's been going on at Archbishop Keough, and let's ask this girl. She goes to Keough, oh, let's ask her if she knows about this. So was it Sister Russell? Because I think that Coob and McKeon are saying they didn't know anything about the essay that was going on at the school. Obviously Russell knew and told the police officer, right? Or the police officer knew of another case that's been totally hushed up. This case is frustrating because of, in my opinion, the cover-up of it. The girl says, nope, didn't know anything about any, I don't know what you're talking about. She said something like, well, a boy tried to kiss me once, and he's like, that's not what we're talking about. And also note that the detective in the trench coat did not ask her about things that went on at Western High School. He asked her about Keough, Archbishop Keough. Why would he ask her that? Unless he knew something. And if he knew something, why did he know? Did he know because Sister Russell told him? That's what I think. I think Sister Russell confided to the detective that one day before Cathy went missing, that the two priests from Keough had come over without knocking and came on in while the students were there, trying to, again, tell Sister Cathy about what was going on at the school. And I think that's why the detective decided to ask that girl that went there if she knew anything about it. So allegedly, 3 different girls who didn't know each other, they weren't friends, they weren't even from the same years, had confided in Sister Cathy about the sexual abuse that had gone on at Archbishop Keough at the hand of a Father Joseph Maskell. Father A. Joseph Maskell. And allegedly, Cathy had told 2 different ones of these students who didn't know each other and didn't put their heads together that she would do something about it. What she did about it is unknown. But after this came out, many years later, people started putting the pieces together. Heck, actually, I think they put the pieces together back in 1969 and in 1970 when her body was actually found. But there was a cover-up. So I hope this has whetted your interest in the murder of Sister Cathy. This is just talking about Sister Cathy's last day, essentially. What I'm going to do, instead of attacking it the way the keepers did, I'm going to give you information about just one subject, say Sister Cathy's last day, or the car, or Father Maskell, or Jane Doe, or Jane Roe, and give it to you in parts instead of weaving it all together and then weaving in speculation, because then it makes it kind of confusing to pick apart, because in the long run, you might have 2 entirely different things here. You might have the murder of a nun, obviously, that's unsolved, and you might have the sex abuse of all these kids and a cover-up, and these might not be connected. I know, it is very fascinating and very crazy. Now, both these things happen, but they may not be connected. This might be a serial killer that wasn't involved in the church, but then this all came out. But then you still have some cover-up going on, and you want to know why, and you want to stop it, and you want accountability. And that's what I think is real important. So those of you that are watching this that are maybe interested in the Vallow Daybell case, you might think, what's the similarity? There's a lot of similarities. You've got kids involved. You've got religion involved. You've got corruption involved, in my opinion. So, I mean, there's lots of similarities. So if you are interested, I recommend you watch The Keepers, and I recommend you stay tuned. And without further ado, have an excellent day. Bye.